You've been trying to fix the wrong end of the system, the focus problems, the mood swings, the motivation that disappears without warning, the anxiety that has no clear cause, the brain fog that no amount of sleep seems to touch. You've been managing these from the top down, working on your mindset, your habits, your discipline, your thoughts, and some of it has helped. But something keeps pulling you back. Here's what the science now confirms. The signal isn't coming from your brain downward, it's coming from your gut upward. And until you understand that, you are working on the output while the input runs unchecked. Your gut has its own nervous system. This is not a metaphor, it is a biological fact. The enteric nervous system, sometimes called the second brain, contains approximately 500 million neurons. That is more neurons than your spinal cord. It operates independently of your brain, capable of controlling digestion, sensing the environment, and making decisions entirely on its own. It develops from the same embryonic tissue as your central nervous system. In the earliest stages of your development, before the brain and gut were separate systems, they were the same tissue. The vagus nerve is the primary communication highway between them. It is the longest nerve in your body, running from your brainstem all the way down through your heart, lungs, and digestive system. And here is the fact that fundamentally changes how you should think about your mental performance. The vagus nerve is composed of approximately 80% afferent fibers, meaning 80% of the signals travel upward from the gut to the brain. Only 20% go downward from the brain to the gut. Your brain is not directing your gut. Your gut is informing your brain. The command structure you assumed you had is running in the opposite direction most of the time. Here is exactly what your gut is controlling, that you thought your brain was controlling. Effect 1. Your gut produces 90% of your serotonin. Serotonin is not primarily a brain chemical. It is primarily a gut chemical. Approximately 90% of your body's serotonin is produced by specialized cells lining your gut, enterochromaffin cells. This gut serotonin does not directly enter the brain. Instead, it activates vagal nerve signals that travel upward and influence your mood, emotional regulation, and sleep quality. When your gut serotonin production is disrupted through poor diet, dysbiosis, chronic stress, or inflammation, you feel it as low mood, irritability, poor sleep, and a reduced ability to regulate your emotional responses. Not because your brain chemistry changed first, because your gut chemistry changed and your brain responded. Effect 2. Your gut microbiome directly influences your cortisol response. We covered the HPA axis and cortisol in this series, the system that governs your stress response, your sleep architecture, and your inflammatory balance. Research now shows that your gut microbiome communicates directly with the HPA axis through multiple pathways: the vagus nerve, immune signaling, and the production of short-chain fatty acids. A healthy, diverse microbiome helps regulate cortisol production and dampen the HPA axis response after stress. A disrupted microbiome, called dysbiosis, keeps the HPA axis activated, which means if your gut flora is compromised, your cortisol stays elevated even when there is nothing externally stressful happening. You are running a chronic stress response driven not by your life, but by your gut. Comment gut below if you've been experiencing any of these 4 effects without ever connecting them to your gut health. I want to know how many people this reframes. Effect 3. Your gut bacteria produce neurotransmitters that directly affect focus and motivation. Your gut microbiome produces or modulates GABA, your primary calming neurotransmitter. It produces dopamine precursors. It influences norepinephrine, the neurotransmitter most critical for sustained attention and focus. A 2024 UCLA study published in iScience provided direct causal evidence that gut microbiota regulate vagal nerve activity through specific metabolites, meaning your bacteria are literally controlling how much signal your vagus nerve sends to your brain. When your microbiome is depleted or imbalanced, the neural signal from gut to brain weakens. Focus deteriorates. Motivation becomes inconsistent. Attention fragments. Not because you lack discipline, because the biological infrastructure driving those capacities has been compromised at its source. Effect 4. Gut inflammation crosses the blood-brain barrier and causes neuroinflammation. Your gut lining is a barrier between the interior of your digestive system and your bloodstream. When this barrier becomes permeable through chronic stress, poor diet, alcohol, or dysbiosis, inflammatory compounds leak into circulation and eventually reach your brain. Neuroinflammation is now linked to brain fog, cognitive decline, depression, and impaired decision-making. Research published in 2025 confirmed that microbial imbalances in the gut are associated with conditions ranging from irritable bowel syndrome to mood disorders and neurodegeneration. The inflammation starts in the gut. The impairment shows up in your thinking. Here is the fundamental problem with how most self-improvement content is structured. It assumes the brain is the control center and the body is the vehicle. Fix your mindset. Control your thoughts. Build better habits. Develop discipline. All of these are top-down interventions, trying to change the output of a system whose input is not being addressed. But the research on the gut-brain axis makes the direction of causality clear. Your mood, your focus, your motivation, your stress resilience, your emotional regulation, these are not primarily products of your thoughts or your discipline. They are products of a biological system that starts in your gut, travels upward through your vagus nerve, and expresses itself in your brain as states you then interpret as personality, willpower, or character. You are not unmotivated. Your dopamine precursors are depleted. You are not undisciplined. Your cortisol is dysregulated by a microbiome under chronic stress. You are not emotionally unstable. Your serotonin production has been compromised by gut inflammation. The framing is wrong, and the wrong framing produces the wrong interventions. Fix 1. Feed your microbiome before you try to fix your mind. Your gut microbiome is a living ecosystem of trillions of bacteria, fungi, and microorganisms. Its diversity directly correlates with the quality of the signals it sends upward to your brain. The single most evidence-based way to improve microbiome diversity is dietary fiber, specifically the variety of plants you eat. Research consistently shows that people who eat 30 or more different plant foods per week have significantly more diverse microbiomes. This does not mean 30 servings. It means 30 different types. An apple and a pear are 2. Brown rice and white rice are 2. The variety itself is what feeds different bacterial strains. Start counting variety, not just quantity, and reduce ultra-processed food, which actively disrupts the gut lining and drives the dysbiosis that keeps your HPA axis activated and your vagal signaling weakened. Fix 2. Activate your vagus nerve deliberately every day. Your vagus nerve is not just a passive communication cable, it is a regulatable system, and the tone of your vagus nerve, called vagal tone, directly determines how effectively it regulates your stress response, your inflammatory control, and the quality of gut-brain signaling. High vagal tone is associated with better emotional regulation, lower cortisol, and greater cognitive resilience. 3 evidence-based methods to increase vagal tone. The physiological sigh, which we covered in the deep sleep video, directly stimulates the vagus nerve through controlled breathing. Cold water on the face or a brief cold shower activates the diving reflex, which stimulates vagal activity immediately. And humming or chanting, including recitation, creates vibrations in the throat that directly stimulate the vagus nerve through the pharyngeal branch. Consistent practice of any of these 3 methods measurably increases vagal tone over weeks. Fix 3. Protect your gut lining from the 3 main destroyers. The gut lining, the barrier between your digestive system and your bloodstream, is your first line of defense against neuroinflammation. 3 things most commonly compromise it. Chronic psychological stress, which reduces gut barrier integrity through cortisol's direct effect on intestinal permeability. Alcohol, which disrupts both the gut lining and the microbiome composition simultaneously. And antibiotics taken without probiotic support, which deplete the microbiome significantly and take weeks to recover without active replenishment. None of this requires a supplement protocol or expensive intervention. It requires understanding what is compromising the system and removing it, or actively rebuilding what has been depleted through fermented foods, diverse plant intake, and deliberate stress regulation. Your mind, your body, and the microscopic ecosystem living inside you are not separate systems. They are one system, and the direction of influence runs in ways that most self-improvement content has never acknowledged. because most self-improvement content starts at the brain and works downward. But the science starts at the gut and works upward. 500 million neurons sending signals through the longest nerve in your body to the organ you've been treating as the sole author of your experience. Your brain is not generating your states in isolation. It is responding to inputs that begin far below where you've been looking. Feed the system. Activate the pathway. Protect the barrier. The mind you've been trying to build from the top down becomes far more available when you stop neglecting the foundation it's built on. Which of the 3 fixes are you starting with? Feeding your microbiome, activating your vagus nerve, or protecting your gut lining? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If you're not here to stay average, subscribe. And if this series has been building something useful for you, the full playlist is on my channel. Every video connects. Start anywhere.